morning, everybody. I'm Beth McManus-Lopez. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can check out what we have going on today. I've been managing SIP Certified since 2009, and it's been a really fun experience to work with the Vineyard team and all of our members. 76% of the public believes independent third-party certification is the best way to verify a product's social or environmental claims. So that's exactly why we wrote the SIP Certified program. It is a development of the nonprofit Vineyard team. We started on California's Central Coast in 1994 with a group of growers who really wanted to find ways to farm their grapes more sustainably. And that educational component is still a huge part of the work that we do today. So we still do in-field tailgate meetings. Then in the past year, we've done a lot more online education as well. We have a 3-day Sustainable Ag Expo in November every year, where we bring experts from all over the world and growers to talk about resource issues. And we also have the Sustainable Wine Growing podcast. So if you really love getting nerdy about grape growing practices, that's a perfect place for you to go to learn about the latest science and technology. In 1996, we wrote the first self-assessment for sustainable vineyard farming. And this was a 1,000-point questionnaire that covered practices of every aspect of the vineyard, from preserving natural habitat to water conservation to how employees were being educated. And we would ask farmers to go through, answer these questions, and also look for practices that they weren't doing at that time that they wanted to implement. We'd have them come back a year later, take the self-assessment again to see if they would improve their scores. And we found that this was a really effective learning tool. People consistently improved their scores over time. In the early 2000s, our grower community came to us and they said that they were seeing a lot of green claims in the marketplace. And they felt that if they were going to make a green claim themselves to producing a sustainable wine, that they wanted a program to back that up with, something with teeth. So we put together a technical advisory committee and really combed through that original self-assessment to make sure that it was very specific, measurable, and auditable to develop a program that would be rigorous. And we launched that Vineyard program in 2008. And because sustainability doesn't stop in the vineyard, we added a winery component in 2016. So within SIP Certified, we certify both properties and products. So the property being the vineyard and the winery, the product being the wine. So any wine made with at least 85% SIP certified fruit as verified through an audit can include that logo on the label. And that fruit can be either estate or purchase. So that opens it up to a number of different brands. So at SIP Certified, we're dedicated to protecting the people and the planet by supporting sustainable wine growing practices. And sustainability is about being more than green. We're protecting today's needs without preventing the future from meeting theirs. And we really like to talk about the 3 Ps, which are people, planet, prosperity. Now let's take a deep dive into those 3 Ps. The people, they are our most valuable resource. And this is a really nice talking point to bring up when you're talking about your sustainable practices, because you'll find that oftentimes your consumers hadn't considered that the people are such a huge component of the work that you're doing. So there's a lot of questions in the certification around providing continuing education, really developing your staffers so that they're fully engaged in their job and in moving the whole organization forward. And also looking at how you're a part of the community. There's tons of wonderful examples of how all of our members give back. I know Timbre has done a lot of donations to the local restaurants in the Arroyo Grande area over this past year. And another one of my favorite examples of community involvement is with George Donati, who's a farmer in the Edna Valley. And as many of you are probably familiar, the Edna Valley has a pretty solid intersection of both neighborhoods and farming. So a lot of the people from the neighborhoods like to take a walk, stroll through the pretty vineyards, but that's not always a safe thing to do because equipment might be operating and people are working. So what George has done is he's equipped all of his staff with a letter. And this serves a couple of functions. One, perhaps the staffers aren't all first language English speakers, so it helps them communicate clearly with anyone who's coming through. And also what the letter does is it explains to the people who are taking the stroll that it's not an appropriate time to be in the vineyard now, but it invites them to come back. So he's always inviting people to come take a private tour with him to really learn about what's happening. And that's a great way to interface with your neighbors to educate them about farming. Onto the planet. Oftentimes, this is the easiest P to talk about because many of your tasting rooms are right at your vineyard. Or if they're not, you might have some beautiful imagery up on your walls that you can reference as you're talking about how you're taking care of the planet. Some good examples to give are habitat preservation. So you probably have sections around your property where wildlife is free to roam. Those owl boxes are always popular. That's an example of integrated pest management where you're encouraging a natural predator to come and take up a homestay on your property and help manage your gopher population for you. Cover crops are another wonderful thing to talk about because they're so visual. Those are the grasses that grow in between the vine rows, and they have lots of positive functions from preventing soil erosion, they help water infiltration, and they can also provide nutrients back to the vines themselves. In the winery, you could talk about how you reduce water use by pre-cleaning with squeegees and brooms before using any water, or using low volume, high pressure nozzles to clean the tanks. And then, of course, talking about any energy savings that you do if you have a solar array. Those are wonderful examples. And then the last P is prosperity. So we cannot take care of the people on the planet without having a successful, prosperous business. So in this section of the standards, the certification program, we look at fruit quality, doing trials both in the vineyard and in the winery to learn better ways to do things, and then all the way into having a multi-year budget to be successful and stable for the long term. And within SIP Certified, there are lots of brands that are certified under other programs like organics and biodynamics. And as you can see here, there's certainly overlap in these certification programs in terms of how they look at habitat, soil conservation, integrated pest management. But the purpose of SIP Certified is that we're looking at it as a holistic view. So we're also addressing water conservation, recycling, social responsibility, continuing education, and those sound business practices. Getting into some of the fun stuff. So in 2018, we received a grant from the California Department of Farming and Agriculture. And this allowed us to look into ways that we could improve consumer awareness about sustainability. So we did this research on 3 different stages. First was to research the best practices for retail displays and marketing to improve consumer awareness. Using those results, we created and are now implementing a revised marketing strategy with the overall goal of increasing awareness, sales, and recognition of sustainable wines. We kicked this off with some consumer research by partnering with Cal Poly. And what we found after doing a national sample survey was that most wines are purchased at a retail outlet. Females and wine consumers with children are more likely to use an in-store display. A quarter of those wine consumers using those in-store displays are extremely or very likely to pay more for a sustainable wine. So that's tipping them over the edge to make that purchase. And then our recommendations for these displays were to develop vibrant and eye-catching pieces, and then of course to place them in high traffic areas. So we actually got to test drive these in 2018 and 2019. We worked with California Fresh Markets in San Luis Obispo and in Pismo to put up these displays and see what kind of actual impact it had in real life. In 2018, we learned all of the challenges that come with having a display, from them getting moved and removed. So in 2019, we partnered more directly with the store to get these established spaces that you see here in the picture. Another thing that we've learned in our original round of research is that most wines that are in the SIP certified program are being sold at a higher than the average per bottle price. In Pismo Beach, that particular store had an older demographic, and they also sell wines at a higher price. In this store, the displays significantly impacted sales. So what we've learned is that in locations where shoppers appear to be a match for SIP certified wines, the displays had a significant impact on these sales. So in that Pismo store, we were able to see a price increase of over 11%. So using all of that as a foundation, we've developed our marketing plan that we've been working through over the past about 18 months. And while marketers love nothing more than picking the perfect shade of taupe, a good marketing plan is grounded in supporting our members, promoting sustainable practices, and of course, selling wines. And we do this by coming up with a brand strategy. So we had to ask ourselves, why don't we make the consumer the hero of our brand story? Oftentimes as a brand, we look at ourselves from the inside out. So you might talk about the terroir of wine, or in our case, we were always talking about the science of SIP certified. And while those are both really important factors in the work that you're doing, they might not be as meaningful to your consumer. So what's going on? We need to make ourselves talk to our target consumer. And we can do that by tapping into both the heart and the mind. The best brand strategy is both creative and logical. And we can do this by storytelling. Humans are hardwired to remember stories. There was a Swiss psychologist named Carl Jung who researched storytelling across time and culture. And he found that there were only a handful of themes within these stories. And within those themes, there were a handful of characters. And these are what he labeled the 12 archetypes, which you see right here. We use these archetypes to develop our brand voice, look, and feel. Some ones that you are going to be familiar with are Nike is the hero, Virgin is the rebel, and at SIP Certified, we're the sage. So we used our own archetype to develop our marketing campaigns. And because marketing is storytelling, we decided we wanted to connect more through these human stories, emphasizing that third P, which is the people. And there's a lot of ways that we've been able to do this. One of my favorites is our grower profiles that you'll find on our website, on social media, in our newsletter. And these are great stories of the people behind the wines, like Brian Talley here from the Edna Valley, actually started out as a vegetable farmer. And Chris Hamill, who works out of Santa Barbara, is the Jiu-Jitsu Black Belt World Masters champion. So definitely pop onto our website and check out some of these behind the scenes stories. We've also done a lot of work with press over the past 18 months. We've been putting together sustainable wine mailings, which have garnered lots of wine reviews, additional interviews about the certification program and our members. And from those, we've had millions and millions of impressions. And that's something we're going to continue doing this year. So make sure you look out for notices so that you can get involved in those wine mailings too. Another great way to connect, of course, is social media. This is a really good way to educate our audiences. And we would love for you to follow us at SIP Certified on both Instagram and Facebook. Make sure you tag us. We love to repost the information that you're sharing about what you have going on. And feel free to share anything that we put on our pages on your own as well. Another big component is learning, which is exactly what we're all doing here today. So we really have amped up our educational component for the members in the program. We have a great marketing newsletter that comes out twice a month, and we cover all kinds of tips from consumer purchasing stats to direct-to-consumer information. I am happy to do a meeting like this, an educational meeting for your team, whether that be the sales or the tasting room department. We've been doing a lot virtually lately. I've also had a really fun opportunity to join in on your member club tastings if you're doing any of those virtually, so we can taste some wine and have a little chat about sustainability. We've also been putting on educational webinars, and those have covered all kinds of marketing components, taking a deep dive, which could be selling tips or social media tips. And then, as I mentioned before, we have the Sustainable Wine Growing podcast. And I see I have a question that popped up, so let me go ahead and answer that before we get too far ahead. The question is, on the people front, is there any living wage component or anything wage related in the SIP certification? Yes, we do have a question about paying competitive wages in there. And then another question is if we can receive the slides via email. Absolutely. So once we are done, I will send out a recording of the video. I can get you the PowerPoint too if you want to utilize any of the slides on your own. And I'll also send out a ton of other links for the things we're going to talk about. All right. And of course, nothing really happens until you make a sale, said every wine salesperson. Selling wine is, of course, a key component to our whole marketing campaign we've been working on over the past couple of years. And it's also a bit of a challenge. So what we've decided to do is really partner directly with our members, so all of you, because you already have that direct connection to the stores, the restaurants, your consumers. And so what we want to do is make providing information about sustainability easier for you. And here's a few more ideas of how we can do that. Oh, but first I want to talk about this great research that came out from Full Glass, and it was about trade perceptions on the importance of sustainability in their buying. So 68% said sustainable production is a useful selling feature. 65% identify wines to carry or sell based on third-party certification, and that's up from 2016. 76% said demand for sustainably produced products will increase steadily over the next 5 to 10 years. And again, that's also up from 2016. And 69% said clear or highly visible labeling or identification on the package is useful in sales. I have another question. Oh, okay, I got your email. Thank you. Perfect. I'll make sure I get all of those slides over to you. All right. And as we talked a little bit about earlier, you can certify your wine. So this allows you to basically tell your consumer that you're making wines sustainably if you aren't able to have that face-to-face conversation. So if they're buying in a store. And there's been some other research on this that 66% of sustainable wine consumers identify eco-friendly wines via labels or in-store information. And we do have some fun ways that you can provide them with more information when they're in the store. We have these great retail displays that you can order from our website. They're free right now because of the grant funding that we've received. So there's a few different options. There's this larger 3-case stack piece. There's one that's intended for a single case stack. And then we also have these nice handouts. These are a good component to keep in your tasting room to hand out, or you could even mail them out with your wine club shipments. So if you want to do that, just let me know so I can make sure I have enough on hand for you. So as you can see, everything in marketing is connected. All of these campaigns build on each other. So from here on out, we really want to message from the heart about the good work that all of our members are doing. Sustainability is no longer about doing less harm, it's about doing more good. Consumers want products and services that are better. And we can help our consumers know that their purchase of SIP certified wines matters. A simple choice for SIP has a small but positive impact on the world. And we can all have a greater impact on our consumers' purchases by connecting to their hearts and showing them how we're doing good. And in addition to the email that I will send out, our website is sipcertified.org, where you can find tons of resources, information on how to talk about SIP Certified. We have a really fun course that would be great for your staff to take. That's a bit of a review of everything we've gone over today with a quiz at the end. You can order all of those retail materials on there and also get signed up for our newsletter. I see another question. What is the incentive for winemakers or vineyards that already practice sustainability to apply for certification? It's a great question. So that really goes back to the whole intent of why we developed SIP Certified in the first place. And usually people, when they're choosing to get certified, they are already practicing a lot of sustainable techniques, and it's a way to validate that claim. We're really big on transparency with our certifications. So if you go onto the website, you can see all of the rules that people are adhering to. And what it allows the consumer or your buyer to know is that they've gone through all of those practices, they have been implemented, they've been third-party audited to verify that. And in addition to that, we're always raising the bar. So SIP Certified is considered a living document. My technical committee is still in existence today, and we review a few chapters every year, any suggestions that come in about how we can improve the program. And in addition to that, it's sent out for external peer review every 5 years. So we have experts that could be from the University of California Extension Service, the Environmental Protection Agency, different professionals reviewing all of those standards so that we're always adding back in the latest science and research into the program. You can find me at beth@sipcertified.org. I'm always happy to answer any questions that come up or do a training for your team independently too, if that's something that would help you guys out. So we're here to support all of your good work, and we really appreciate being a part of an industry that's been so forward thinking in sustainability, and launching in on that kind of work in '94 was really progressive. I have another question: suggestions when consumers don't seem to care about the sustainable message you're trying to promote. Yeah, everyone's going to have a different level of interest, and you can almost think about your sustainability spiel in different levels. So for some people, maybe it's just a part of your blanket story, like, hey, we're certified sustainable. And that might be enough for them. Some other people might be interested in knowing more. They might ask you questions. So it's nice to have some of those examples on hand about talking about the, the cover crops, or talking about how you take care of your employees. We did a really good marketing post a few months ago about how to talk to consumers, different types of consumers. I'm going to put that in the email too, because that will give you some really good answers about how to talk to those different segments about sustainability and find the right angle that's going to resonate with them. What's the percentage increase over the last 3 years of growers being certified? I don't have the percentage offhand, but let's see. When I started in 2009, there were, I think, 9,000 acres that were certified. Now we're upwards of 42,000. That's in California, and we actually have a couple of properties in Michigan. We're adding more members to our winery certification program. And then on the wine side, I think it's something like 43 million bottles are certified, so that's grown a ton. Another question: are there any tools on your website that you want to call out that didn't come up yet today? I called out, I think, one of the most helpful tools on our website. We have a page that's called Member Resources. So if you go there, you're going to find tons of stuff. So that's where you can download the logos, so you can add those to any of your own marketing materials. You can take that SIP certified course if you want to get a little revamp on your certification on how to talk about sustainability. That's also where you can order any of those retail displays. So we've tried to make that one hub. And in addition to that, to really stay up to date with what we're doing, I recommend signing up for that newsletter, which I'll include a link in the email at the end of this too, so that you can always keep up to date with any of the latest pieces that we have coming out. Let's see, what is your response when a consumer suggests sustainable is just marketing? You get that a lot. Okay, yeah. I guess not everyone's going to immediately be a good fan. I think the best way to handle something like that is to say, is to explain how the process works. So this is a rigorous program. Not everyone can get certified in it. Our members are going above and beyond what's required by law in order to get certified. It's a science-based program that's third-party audited. So you're really doing good work in order to get through certification. And internally, from my experience, when I talk to our growers about why they get certified, they say it's because it's the right thing to do. So our members who are going through this process, which takes time, and it does have a cost associated with it in terms of the licensing fees, they're really putting value in that. And it's usually marketing isn't their first reason for why they're going about getting certified. Always mention the cycle of improvement. Yeah, that's a great thing to mention, Andy. I love that. So I think talking about sustainability in terms of something that's always getting better is huge, because science and technology change, and we're all changing with that. Let's see, how do you answer the question when a consumer is skeptical of sustainability in wine for vegans? So that's going to be dependent on your own winemaking practices. So that's going to be pretty specific, I think, brand to brand, on whether or not your wines are vegan or not, and explaining maybe the winemaking process a little bit more in detail for people in terms of what could be added or not added just by brand to brand. And I think, labeling is getting pretty popular across the board on all kinds of things. And I know with alcohol, we don't have to include ingredients, but there's more and more brands that are doing that, or even adding a label that might say that it is vegan. So really, any of these questions that you get from consumers, whether they're skeptical about sustainability or if a wine is vegan or not, it's all an opportunity to educate them. It's a complicated industry. I think it's like 1% of the world's population produces our food. So imagine how detached we all are from farming and food production. So any chance that you have to talk with somebody about what you're actually doing is really a nice opportunity for them to learn more. Okay, so how the third-party certification works. So Vineyard Team or SIP certified writes the standards. So we write those rules of, if you're going to be certified, you have to implement these things. Where the third party comes in is the inspector. So when someone who's getting certified is audited to verify their compliance with the standards, that auditor isn't employed by our organization. So that's where that third party process comes in. It prevents any kind of conflict of interest. So we're not rubber stamping our own program by saying, here are the rules and also we approve you. That third party auditor is the one that's verifying compliance. And then even in addition to that, all of those audit reports are then reviewed by a separate certification advisory committee. So there's almost like a check on the external check for someone to achieve certification. Thank you everyone for joining me today. Again, I'm Beth at sipcertified.org if you have any questions. Thank you. I really appreciate you joining me this morning.